Okay, what I'm going to do is I'll just make a project over here. And it was not planned, but let's do a business card. Okay, and I will try to use Photoshop to create an image. And so let's say that you're supposed to create that 2-page spread for a fashion magazine, and I want to also create a business card for that. Okay, so let's do this. I have this image over here. I can use one of these images.
Are we not sharing stuff anymore?
Oh, you can't see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't share your screens with me yet because I think I'll have to go and change some settings somewhere. We'll figure out later on. So right now we'll just work on a project. So you just watch, and if you have any questions in between, so let me know. Okay, can you see this screen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so this was a catalog which I worked a couple of years back, and these are some of the images from there. So this was for a store, and they were creating their own catalogs over here. So anyway, so I'll just choose one of these images. And since it's an image, I can open it in Illustrator, but if in Illustrator, I will have to if I have to edit this or if I have to knock down the background, it will not be an easy job to do in Illustrator. So if I want to use this image on a separate background, okay, or a different background, so I'll have to extract this image. So, you know, best thing to do is, whenever you have an image to work with, uh, I like to work if you are on a Mac operating system, so you can look at the thumbnail view of the folder. You can look at the list view of the folder. List view is good if you want to sort out your uh, images or documents in one folder with date or name or size or kind. You can do that. So that is a good place to do this. My favorite way of looking at images is the column view. Okay, so in column view, not just get a, a preview of those images, but you can also look at the details of what that image is. For example, the image name is here, and I can see that it's a JPEG image. It's not a very big file, so it's only like 544 KB or kilobytes in size. It also shows you when the file was created. So that was done in 2018. And when was it modified? And all those details can be there. So sometimes, even before opening the image, okay, so you can look at that. This is important over here. So your pixel dimensions, how many pixels? So this looks like, 3,636 pixels by 5,000. So it means that this image has a lot of information in there. Resolution, this image is 240 pixels per inch. Okay, good resolution for print. Color mode is RGB. So obviously, if I'm working with RGB, it was for a print job. So maybe at one point, depending upon the process, so you may have to convert that into CMYK. Okay, so it also shows you that how the image was shot. Okay, so that is the Canon camera. Canon EOS 5D Mark IV was used to create that image. So photographer used that, and it also tells you what lens was used and what aperture. So if you are a photographer, so this information is important, okay? So that's why I really like this columns view of looking at things. So because it gives me a lot of details, okay? So now I know a little bit about this image. So what this image is all about. I do have the option of rotating it. So in this case, I don't have to rotate it. If I want to mark any, you know, notes or anything over there, so I can also do that. And then there are some more. So this is in Macintosh operating system, okay? So this, once again, my preferred way of working and looking at files is the column view. But if I have to search an image, date modified or which date it was created, then I can go to the list view and check over here. So I can just, there is a fourth way of looking files on Macintosh computer, that is show item icons in a list column. But if I click over here, you can see that I can get all that information which we were looking at. But over here, if I have like 10, 20, 30, 50 images in a folder, I can easily scroll through them, okay? So that is another way of looking. Once again, this is a good way of finding your files or look at your files if you have number of files, so you can easily scroll. But this view is good because it doesn't take that much room. So I can just, and then if I have to scroll, I can just scroll through the images and see which image I want. And if I want to see a larger thumbnail, so I can just enlarge the window a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to use this image and put it on a business card. Okay, and let's see how we can. We'll also create a logo today. Okay, let's do that too. So what we are trying to do is to prepare our images for putting on a business card. Okay, but before I get to the business card sizes and all the stuff, why don't we open this image in Photoshop? And so it's right here. Okay. All right, so this is a good image. Help me out. If I want to extract this image from the background, what should I do?
Select the wand tool.
Okay. So magic wand tool.
Yes.
Okay, and what do I do with that?
Click on the white background.
So click in the white background. Okay, so was it, did it select everything?
Yeah.
Okay, so what should I do now?
I would use the object selection tool. Do we have that option in Photoshop?
Mm-hmm. Oh, we'll get to that. So since we are already in magic wand tool, so how can I fix that? Okay, two ways of doing that. One is I already have the magic wand tool selected. So when I clicked, it selected partial area. Okay. Then if I press my shift key down, you see my cursor with a magic wand with a plus sign, that means shift adds. So if I click in this area, I can add that area. Okay, I can click over here and add that area. I'll click over here, click over here, and then click over here. Okay, so why everything was not selected was because with the magic wand tool, my tolerance was not that much. So tolerance is set to 26. So if I deselect and increase the tolerance, let's try 36 instead of 26. And then click over here. So it will select more area, okay? If I make it like 64, increase the number, deselect and try again. So click in the same area again. So now you can see it is selecting more, okay? So this is how you can set the tolerance level of your tool, which is a magic wand tool over here. Okay, so we should know how to use this tool. So shift click to add. Now this area was left out because the pixels of this color were not contiguous over here. So this model's arm is enclosing this area right here. So there was no way of pixels to be contiguously chosen over here. So let me deselect and try it once again. So this time, rather than just clicking here and then shift clicking, now if you notice that in your options bar where I was setting tolerance, there is a checkbox called contiguous. So if I uncheck this and then try, so if I click over here, so now you can see that it's going to try to find wherever that color is in your document. Although it's not going to work, but just to let you know that sometimes you may have to uncheck contiguous if you are trying to find a color which you click on. Even if you notice that on her forehead over here, so there are pixels of that color range in there. So it is also selecting that area, and it's just selecting those highlights over here. Now that is fine. I'm going to deselect, but remember, these are your selection tools. Okay, so move tool, under move tool, so these are marquee tools. We played with those earlier. Then there were these lasso tools, and we are using the magic wand tool. But I do want to introduce you to this object selection tool, which is a new tool in last couple of versions of Photoshop. And this is amazing. This is like you can call it as a artificially intelligent tool. It doesn't work all the time, but let's see how it works on this image. So in this image, so with this tool, I will say that, hey, you know what? This figure is an object, and I want to select this object. So I can just draw a marquee around this object like this. And when I release, it is calculating, and boom, you see how nice of a selection it did. So this is a really good tool. So now I have a selection, okay? And I want to isolate it. Okay, so either I make a new document, copy and paste that in there, or in the same document, I can delete the background, okay? Now, at this time, what is selected? The figure is selected, okay? So if I want to delete the background, what should I do?
Make a mesh. Mash.
No. If I want to delete the background area, you go to the select menu and choose inverse. So Shift Command I is the shortcut to inverting your selection. So when I invert, so now the background is selected. Okay. So how can I tell background is selected? So if I take my brush tool and start painting, you can see I can paint in the background, but not in the image because that is not selected. So I'll just do Command Z to undo this. Now I do want to delete the background. Can I delete the background?
Yeah.
So how do I do that? So just hit the delete key.
Yeah. Just delete.
Okay, so if I hit the delete key, you see what's going to happen. Photoshop thinks that I want to fill the background with something. Okay, so in other words, Photoshop can't fill or can't delete those pixels over here. So I know that delete button is to delete. So what is going on? So let's try again. Cancel. If I press the delete key on my keyboard, so the fill thing opens up. Okay. So what I need to do is to go and check out my layers and see what is going on. You see this little padlock? So sometimes when you have documents which somebody else created, you don't know if a layer was locked or not. Sometimes it's a specialized background layer, so that comes with being locked. So I need to unlock this before I can delete. So I can just click on the lock to unlock. Okay. Now if you notice that it doesn't say that it's a background layer anymore. Okay. So that's how, if you see a background layer, so most probably it will be locked. So if I hit the delete key now, it deletes the background. Now you can see the checkered background over here. Okay. So going to
I
deselect.
have a quick question.
Sure.
Is this the same process or well, it's a different way to do it, but if you did a clipping mask and then you deleted the background layer, is that the same? It gives you the same result?
Okay. It gives you the same result, but remember with the clipping mask, you are not deleting any pixels. You are hiding pixels. In this case, I have deleted the pixels. So in other words, those pixels which have been deleted, if I save this file now, those pixels have already lost their lives. They are not coming back. Okay. So if you are using a mask, and if you're so in mask, you are just temporarily hiding those pixels.
Oh, okay. For my spread project, I was trying to do this. I cut out a person to put it into the spread. And I was having a hard time getting to wrap the text around that.
Right.
But I was doing the clipping masks
Right.
process of that. So is that probably why?
That is probably why. And I'll show you how to save that image now, so that you save it in a correct format, so that this transparent area goes into your InDesign project with you if you are going to use it in InDesign. Okay, so before
awesome.
going that, just going to zoom in, and I can see that this area was missing. So with this, I can just quickly use my magic wand tool and just click in this area. But once again, the contiguous was unchecked. So I'm going to check contiguous again, deselect, and then click. So it's only going to select the contiguous pixels over here, and I can delete them. All right. So this is done. And if there are any, if you want to look at the details and see, there are some pixels which were left over here, which were not selected. So you can go and delete them. Sometimes it is also helpful. You can create a new layer, fill that layer with a dark color. Let's say if I fill this with black and move that black layer behind the layer below. Now you can see that if there is any refinement to be done to the image, so there's a white background area over here, there's a little dot over here, a little bit in the hair area which needs to be cleaned. So those are the details you can go over later on. But I just created this black layer just to make sure to create a contrast, to just see that, how good of a job that selection process did for me. Okay. So anyway, so I'm not going to go into detail, so I'm going to delete this black layer, and I need to save this image. Okay. Before I save this image, if I go to image mode and image, and then say image size. Okay. So just double checking how big this image is. So we know that, there were a lot of pixels in there, but what is the size which will be printed? at 100%. So right now my units of measurements are set to pixels. I'm going to change that to inches. So now if you look at this image, it's a big image. It is 15 inches by 22, 23 inches. It's a huge image. And anyone, what is the size of a business card?
3 by 2, I think.
Okay, anyone else? For a standard, Google, somebody can Google it. It's a standard business card size in the United States. Is anyone doing that?
3.5 by 2 inches.
Right. So not 3, but 3.5. Okay. So that is a standard business card size. So if I want to use this image in a business card, so probably this is going to be a really big image. Okay. If I was going to use it in that, you know, 2-page spread in InDesign, then probably this is a really good size. So I can still scale it down in InDesign, and I will have enough pixels. But I don't need this many pixels in a small business card size. So what I'll do over here is inch-wise. So it says 3.5 inches. So I'm going to make this about 5 inches high, even a little larger than what I need. What I'm doing is that I'm not going to make it the exact size, because more pixels there are, better printing, you know, better details it will have. So that's why I'm just keeping it a little bit larger. Okay, so about 3 inches by 5 inches to start with, and say okay. So when I do this, so you see that on my screen the image became smaller. I'm viewing it at about 50%. If I double click on the magnifying tool, this is the 100% view of the image. Okay, so since I reduced this in size, and if I just save it right now, so all the pixels which were eliminated from here will be gone. Okay, so we need to make sure. So make sure to save this document as, okay, so not, you don't just say save, but because once you save it, all the pixels which were eliminated will be completely gone. So you need to make a copy. So you can go to save as, okay. And so I'm not going to save over the original, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop on this computer. My computer is really running slow today. Okay, so I'll just save it to the desktop. Now I can save it as a Photoshop document if I still need to edit it. Okay. If file size is an issue that I don't want larger file sizes, then I can save it as a JPEG, because JPEG compresses the image down to a smaller size. Okay. But be careful when you are saving JPEGs. JPEG, while making the image smaller, it may also throw out some more information and degrade the image. But for us, I think JPEG should be a fine format. So under format, I'm going to choose JPEG. Now there's a problem with saving as a JPEG. So my intent was that this image can be put on a different color background. That's why I took out the background and made it transparent. But if I save it as a JPEG file, JPEG does not support transparency. Okay, so which are the formats which can support transparency? Photoshop, of course, I can use that. So I can use a Photoshop file and place it into an InDesign document or Illustrator document. Previously, it was not possible, but the newer versions of Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, so you can have a file with all the layers and you can place them into each other. That should be fine. If I don't want to save layers or things like that, so the best thing will be to save it in a format. So one of the formats is called PNG format. PNG format was developed more for creating images for the web. Okay, the PNG stands for Portable Network Graphics, but it has made its way into printing now. If your print shop is not too old, they should be able to support this format. So I'm going to save it in a PNG format. Okay, so I'll just save it right now. So this is going to ensure, if I'm saving it in PNG, that the transparent area also gets saved with the image. Okay, so when I clicked on save, so another dialog box came up. So file size, large file size, faster saving, um, interlacing. If you are into web development, so these are going to make more sense to you, like interlacing or medium file size, smallest file size. I'm going to go with larger file size because I want all the details. I don't want any other compression to be added. So I'll just say OK to this. So now this is my PNG file which was saved. Okay. So this file, if I open this and bring this over here, so now if you notice that there is a transparency to this. So I'm just previewing this on my Macintosh computer. How you can also preview on a Mac computer is to select a file and just hit the space bar on your computer. It's going to give you a little preview of the image. Okay, so it can be anything. Here's a video file. So if I click over here, so there's a video file, you know. So all I have to do is to select a file and hit the space bar to see it. Okay. So this is the image I'm going to use in a business card. Okay, so now we have done one thing. We have created a image which will be used. Okay, so next I want to see, do I need to create a plain background for the business card, or if I want to create a different image? Okay. Okay, so I don't know because I didn't plan what we are doing today. So I need to find out, you know, if there are any other choices of images. Now you can have, you can go in your own library. Okay. So you can go into your own library and find any images you may already have, which you can use. Or let's see, there is a website called Pixel Bay. It's right here. Pixel Bay. Okay, so Pixel Bay or Pixabay, actually PIXABAY.com. So a lot of images you can find over here are for free. Okay. So you can say, hey, you know what, let's try something different over here. You can do a search of any type of image you are looking for, or you know, or you can just browse through and see what can work for your project. So I'm not sure, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, so I'm just going to randomly pick an image. Maybe this looks good. And I'll just click on this image to open it. And you can see that, you know, I'm able to download this image for free. Okay. So that's one option. Okay, so if I click on this, okay, so it'll ask you in which resolution do you want to download. So you can find the resolution by number of pixels it has. So if you really want a higher resolution image, so like this option I will choose if I had to use this image in an InDesign project. Okay, I need a really large, good quality image. For a business card, I can even go down to like this option. Or if you don't want to download it this way, then you can also always like right click on the image and right click and copy. So whatever the size of the image which is being displayed, you can just copy it from here. Okay, so once you copy it, what you do, okay, you can go to Photoshop and place it. And sometimes if that image is not locked on a website, you can simply take this image and drag it. So if you are able to drag and you get this little plus sign next to your cursor, that means you can make a copy of this right now. Okay, so here is that image which I just downloaded. Now, there's a problem. Okay, the problem I didn't realized. It looks like, you know, Pixabay people don't want you to just simply just drag it. They do want you to download it. If you drag it this way, it creates a WebP file. Now, these are really new files, okay? And when I try to open it or preview this, you can't open it, okay? These type of files at this time can only be displayed, run inside a browser. Okay, so I just dragged it into a browser. You can view it in the browser, but I won't even be able to open the WebP file, that is .webp. I can only view it in the browser, and if I try to open it in Photoshop, could not complete your request because Photoshop does not recognize this type of file. Okay, so if you encounter a WebP file, okay, so the best option will be either you download this free download and say, hey, you know what, I want this version of it, and say download it. Okay, and then they want you to know, they want to know that if you're not a robot, that's fine, and say download, and I'll just download it to the desktop, see what type of file I can download. Okay, so this time, if you notice that it came in as a JPEG file right here. Okay, and if I click over here, and I can easily preview this, so this format is supported. Okay, now sometimes there will be images you may not even be able to download at all. Okay, so in that case, the last option will be to do a screen capture. Okay, so if I click over here, so there's an image. So anyone remembers how to do a screen capture on Mac computers?
Command Shift 4.
Yeah, Command Shift 4. It gives you a cursor, and then you can just create a marquee on the area you need to copy, and your computer is going to create a screen captured file on your desktop over here. Okay, so here's that file. All right, so I think I might use this image, but if I look at the colors, so this is also a good image to use, and maybe I can have the company logo and name and address over here, and then have the image over here on the business card. So, I'm just thinking. Or if I use this image, so the model can go over here, but the colors are not right. So maybe I can manipulate some colors over here, which can match our image. Okay, so that is another option. So we can try doing both. Okay, so I'm going to open both these images into Photoshop. So one way of doing it, just select both. I can just draw a marquee, both these images, and drag them into Photoshop. Okay, so this is how I force open the files in Photoshop. So here's this image in Photoshop and this image in Photoshop. So we'll try both and see, just to test them out how they are going to look. Okay. Remember, it's not a, a planned tutorial I'm doing. So I'm just, randomly making decisions as we go. So think that, a client said that, hey, you know what, here's the image and you want to do a business card and you decide how it can be done. So that's what we are doing right here. If any decision we make, you guys don't like, feel free to press the space bar and let me know, and then we can see if we want to change anything. So you guys have complete freedom to give your opinion in here. All right, so remember, this is that image, and how about if I take my move tool, take the image on this layer, and I want to take it to the first image right here and drop it. Okay, so when I'm dropping it, it says, are you sure you want to convert colors to destination document? Okay, so what this is doing is that I copied this image from the internet. Okay, so it was using a different color source or color model. Okay, so this is just Photoshop is saying, hey, you know what, but the image you are bringing in has a different. So at this time, I don't want to deal with this. So I'll just say, okay, okay, I know that. So this comes in, and I don't know if you can see it on your screens. There is a little bit of a color difference over here than the original image it was. So let me just bring this file over here and place it here so that we can see. There's a slight color shift. So this image has little cooler colors than the original. Okay, so just remember that when you are moving image from one document to the other, and if those both documents are not using the same color profile, so there might be a little shift. Okay, so that's fine. So right now I don't care that much. So I just want to see if, okay, so now she's on water, so I'll have to do something over here. And so let's say that, she's wearing a pink dress, okay? The colors over here are much warmer. So can I change the colors on this image, the original image, the background image? So let's try that. So for that, I will have to shift to the background layer, or layer 1 in this case. And in order to change colors, I can choose image adjustment. And from adjustments, I'm going to choose hue saturation. And in hue saturation, I'll just try to move the hue and see how that looks. So if I move the hue towards left, I'm making some of the colors more red, or then go to blue over here. Okay, so if I just move it back a little bit, so this is a nice magenta color over here. but this color is little too saturated from this dress. Okay, so what I can do here is that go to the saturation slider and move the saturation slider down a little bit. So tone down the saturation so that the background is not too overwhelming. Okay. And of course, you can work with lightness or darkness too. So you can make the background lighter or darker. But in this case, I'm just going to go back to 0. That should be fine. There is also a little bit of new tint in the background, and I'm also losing some of the green. Maybe I can live with this or so on. Okay, so there's a lot of adjustments we can do, and there are many different ways we can do that. Okay, so this is just a simple hue shift, which we did in the hue saturation dialog box. Now, maybe I don't like this yet, and I want to experiment a little more, and maybe I can cancel this. Or if I press my Option key down, you see, look at the cancel button over here. If I press the Option key down, it changes to reset. So if I click over here, it goes back to where we started. So you don't have to cancel and restart all over again. So now this time you say, you know what, I like a little bit of that green in there, but these darker yellows I want to change. So there's a drop-down menu in hue saturation. Okay, and I want to target yellows. So now, instead of changing the whole image, I'm targeting this area, the yellows. Okay, so these two sliders, the spectrum of colors which is showing. So this is the range which I will be changing. So this change, when I move this slider over here, okay, so it is changing just the yellows, and yes, we still have a little bit of green left over here, so we are not changing that. So what I did is I isolated those yellows between this range, and I was able to make a change. Okay, that's fine. So I'm just going to keep moving. Say, okay, so this was a little bit of adjustment for you guys. Okay, and now this image, if you want to do the same to this image, maybe, you know, if you want to brighten the colors in her dress a little bit or make them a little more vibrant. So what I can do is either I make a selection of that color only, okay? But before I do this, but I remember that when I brought this image in, it changed color a little bit, and a little bit of contrast was also changed. So I'll try another adjustment. You've seen this adjustment before. So image adjustment, and I'll try levels over here. So in levels, with this diagram or this graph over here, I can see that these are the blacks and these are the whites in this layer. So if I take the white slider, which is this one, and move it towards left, I'm adding more whites. You can, if I keep going, so you can see what happens over here. Okay, so I can just move this where the actual whites start, right here. And taking the black slider, and I'm just going to move it in a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm adding more contrast, okay? So I don't have to go that far, so I can just pull this, you know, where the blacks are starting, so that can be a good place. And then if there is any other adjustment, so I can just move these sliders, okay? The gray slider, which is in between, in order to come up with a kind of solution which I'm looking for over here. Okay, so now I didn't even have to adjust the colors of her dress that much, because by just increasing the contrast by using levels has resolved some of the problems over here. Okay, and of course, you know, if it is for for a catalog, so you don't want to change the actual colors of her dress anyway. So this was just adding a little contrast. But in some cases, your your company may say, hey, you know what, we only have one photograph of this model, but this dress comes in 3 different colors. So in that case, you may have to go and select that area. Okay, so this is what you are going to do. I'll just use the quick selection tool right now. So don't want to go into too much details, and with the quick selection tool, I'll just select the dress. Now, quick selection tool is also a tool which has a built-in artificial intelligence. So what does that mean is that, you know, when I first started working with this tool, so it selected her arm and the leg over here too, but I don't want that. So I press the Option key down and say, you know what, I want to subtract this area from here. And I don't want her arm, so I can Option and then drag this. But yeah, this is fine. And, you know, if there are any other areas which I don't want. Okay, so another thing is, if you notice my cursor, it is associated with a brush. So if I press the left bracket key, remember the left and right brackets, I can increase and decrease the brush size. So if there are any tighter areas to adjust my selection, so I can just make the brush size smaller. And so Option and subtract this from the selection, subtract this from the selection. And if I let go the Option key, I can add this area to my selection. And then you can keep doing that. So each time you do this, your tool is going to learn what you actually want to do. Okay. So as I'm working slowly, you know, your tool can start learning how you want to refine. But I don't have that much time today, so I can. So this was just to show you. So what I'm going to do over here is, I'll keep layer number 2, but take this layer and drag it into the new layer icon to make another copy. And over here, I can go to Image, Adjustment, Hue, Saturation. And now I can just change the hue. Okay. So you can easily make changes. You know, think of, I used this technique a lot several years ago. We did a website for Acura cars, and they only provided us with one Acura car image. And so we had to create 5 different colors. So we made a selection of the paint body area of that car, and we adjusted the colors that way. Okay, so you can keep doing that. So say okay to this and make another copy of the layer, and then this time I'm using keyboard shortcut Command U for hue saturation, and then I can just change the color. And so now we've got 3 different colors ready. And then maybe I'll just make this green to make. So this is a little too bright of a green, so I can unsaturate it. So deselect this. So anyway, so this is not a really good selection over here. So there are some areas, but now you can see, how to make adjustments. Okay. So anyway, so I'll just keep our original image. I'm going to delete these 2 layers. I don't want them. Okay, so this is a good image, and I'm going to also try the same image over here. So once again, I can even borrow the image. I have already adjusted this. So this time, what I'm going to do is I don't even need to use the move tool now. I can just go to this layer, click and drag this layer out, and go to the other image and just drop it over here. So now she is a little too big for this image over here. Okay. So I can put her over here, or I can scale her by Command T, and then I can scale it up. So I'm not even using the Shift key over here. In the new versions of Photoshop, if I press the Shift key, that's going to distort the image, which I don't want to do. So by default, in this the new version of Photoshop, you don't have to press the Shift key to constrain the proportions. So all I have to do is just to do Command T to get the marquee around the image. Once I'm done, so I can hit the return key to complete that. Okay, so your feedback. Which image should I use? This one or this one?
First one, that one.
This one?
I
Okay.
said that one.
This
too.
one.
Okay,
This
so
one, definitely.
all right, so we have consensus over here. So yes, but before I do, just a quick question. Why do you think you didn't choose this one?
I feel like the one with the trees is more balanced.
That is more balanced. Okay, so why is the balance off over here?
The background is out of focus.
No,
Focus
that,
too much on the bench.
huh?
Focus too much on the bench. This one.
I'd
No.
say the bench and the girl are like at the same level, and they're both going like the benches are going back.
The
If
bench is
something-
too small, too big.
Right. So there is a problem with the proportion over here, scaling. Okay, so if you look at the bench and look at the person over here, and she is very small as compared to the bench. So so you know, a trained eye is just going to look at it and say, hey, you know what is wrong? But even untrained eye, when they are going to look at an image like that, so there will be something disturbing. They might not even be able to pinpoint. So although this image, which we just did, is little better, okay, but there are still a little bit of issues over here, especially, you know, there's no particular ground over here on which she can stand, but still, this proportion-wise, this is a better image. Okay, so very good. All right. So now you know when you will be doing your InDesign project, and if you wanted to save an image with a transparent background, which format will you save it in?
PNG.
PNG format, okay? So PNG will save your transparency. So in Photoshop, you are going to knock out the background by selecting and deleting that, or you can even create a mask to isolate the image. So that should be fine, but you should finally save the image in an appropriate format. And in this case, we used PNG format, okay? So that will be a good format to save with a transparent background. All right. Okay, so we have this image. This one, I'm not going to save. I'm going to just delete that. Don't save this. This image, we already created a PNG file, so I'm just going to, don't save this, so we have this. Now, this is what I need to use, okay? So we have this image, and on top of this image, so this will be another image. So I want to keep it separate, okay? Because what if when I create the business card and I have to adjust her? So if I make a image which is a composite of those both images, then I lose the ability to make any adjustments if I have to, okay? So this was just a test for me. So I'm not even going to save this image. We were just playing with this. So just close this and say don't save. But what we have is this guy and this guy. Okay. So these are two images. Okay, so all of this, what we are doing is for creating that Dawn business card. Okay, so we want to do that business card not in Photoshop. I can do it in Photoshop, but you will see that Illustrator will give me a little more flexibility. Okay, so for the time being, I'm going to hide Photoshop and go to, do I have Illustrator open? Yeah, I have Illustrator open over here. Let's say hide others so that Illustrator, file, got too many things open on my computer. That's why it's slow. So I'll just create a new document in Illustrator. And these business cards I will be printing on my desktop printer. So the paper size is going to be what? It's not going to be A4, but it's going to be letter size, which is the American standard. A4 is used in Europe and Australia and those areas. But in North America, we use letter size, which is 8.5 inches. If I change this to inches, so you can see 8.5 inches by 11 inches. Now, orientation of this document, I'm just going to keep it portrait for right now and say create. Okay, so this is the document in which I will be creating a business card, but I will be making copies of that business card so that on same page, we can fit at least 10 to 12 business cards, so depending upon the size, okay. So once again, the standard business card size in North America is 3.5 inches or by 2 inches. Okay. So I need to create a rectangle over here, which is going to designate that size. Okay. So how can I create a rectangle in Illustrator exactly that size? Anyone?
The rectangle tool.
Grab my rectangle tool. Now do what?
Create a rectangle and then adjust the sizing
Okay.
with
Click.
So all you have to do is just click. Okay. So when you click, it opens up a dialog box. Okay. And then I can say that the width of this document is going to be 3.5 inches and height is going to be 2 inches. Okay. I am in a habit of typing in the unit of measurements because sometimes you don't know that your units are set to pixels or millimeters, centimeters, and so on. So I'm in a habit of typing it. So that's a good thing because Illustrator will know what you exactly want. Let's just say okay to this. So now we have size of my document or business card, which is going to be over here. And actually what I really want to do is, so I want to fill this whole document after designing this card with, so let's say how many will fit. So if I option drag over here, select both of them and option drag.
Hey,
Yeah.
sir,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling so good.
Oh, okay. If you're not feeling good, I would let you go and you have and take care of yourself. No problem.
Thank you.
If you miss anything, you already have a video to look at. But right now, don't worry about it. If you have any questions later on, I'm here for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no
Bye.
problem. Take care now.
Bye.
Okay, so guys, so I can see that on one sheet of paper, so I can fit about 10 cards, 5 and 5, 10 cards. So that's what I want to do. So I don't want these. So this is the card I will design, and then I can replicate it. Okay. So let's just zoom in over here. Okay, so once again, background. Okay, so the background of this image or this card is going to be this image. Okay, so I can drag and drop, or I can go to File and choose Place. Okay, not in Finder. Okay, Illustrator, File, and then choose Place. When you are placing files this way, make sure for this particular project, make sure the link is not checked, because you don't want to link the image, you want the image to be part of. So on the desktop, so there is an image, which is this one, say place. And Illustrator comes with this image. If you notice that my cursor is showing that thumbnail of an image, we call it as the loaded cursor. So it is loaded with this image. And then I can just click and drag and see how big I want this to be. Okay. So probably around here, so I can just move it up a little bit. Okay, so I can't see my rectangle now, so if I have to make an adjustment, I don't know, where to place the image and so on. Or if I even have to scale it, how much I can scale it. And so what can I do with that rectangle? Couple of things you can do. Maybe you can go and change the opacity of this image. Okay, just to get the feel of where things are going to be. Okay, and then maybe I'll just make it about this big and move it down a little bit. Okay, so that should look fine. All right, but what I want is, let's just take this back to 100%. You see that rectangle which I drew in the background? I'm going to go to my layers panel. It's my layers. Open up layer 1. So this is my rectangle and this is my image. I'm going to keep that rectangle because I will be using that a little bit later on. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of that rectangle. Take this rectangle and drag it into new layer icon to make a copy. And take the copy and move it on top over here. Okay. I don't want any stroke on this. So I'll just select the object and say, get rid of the stroke, please. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to also shift select the photograph. Okay. So when I shift select, so in the layers, you can see these two squares, these blue squares, they represent that these layers are selected. So once they are selected, I can go to Object and go to Clipping Mask and choose Make. Okay, see what I did? I do have the image still there, but the top rectangle, so if I open this up, this top rectangle is acting like a mask for this image. And if I also hide the rectangle in the background, so you can see that this is where my business card is going to go. Now there's a reason why I'm saving this rectangle in the background, okay? And I'll come back to that in a second. Okay, so we have this image, but we also want to bring that transparent image of the model. So I can also place that image over here, okay? You can also drag and drop if you want. So I can just drag this image over here. And let me scale. Now I'm in Illustrator, not in Photoshop. So in Illustrator, I have to press the Shift key. Okay, if I have pressed the Shift key, then I can constrain the proportions. If I don't press the Shift key, I can mess up the image. So what I can do is press the Shift key and scale this image down and put it over here. All right. So this is where she's going to go. Okay, so I like this idea, you know, having her foot out a little bit, but this is going to be a business card, so it's going to be cropped over here. So what I can do is I want you to look at the layers. Here is my clipping going on. Here is my layer, which is on top over here. So if I want this to be cropped inside, all I have to do is to take this layer and put it inside the clipping group. See, now it is part of this clipping group. I can still adjust it. I can select that image, and if I have to make any adjustments, if I want to scale it, I can still scale it, and so on. Okay. I think I like this a little bit better because I don't want her to be standing on the water area. Okay, so art direction wise, you know, it's not looking that great because, you know, the lighting on the background is different than lighting over here. There's a lot we can do, but right now, so we are not going to worry about that. So I'll just quickly type in some information. So let's say, what can be the company name? Give me a name, guys. So company that makes these dresses. Think about it. Okay, so one of my friends in Bangkok, he has a designing company. So I'll just.
What
Huh?
about Darling Design?
Darling, okay. All right. Oops. What's going on over here? Wrong tool. Let's see. All right. Okay, so we can decide, you know, what fonts and everything to use. So right now, I'm not going to worry that much about it. And let's say this is 555. You know why we use 555?
No.
You know, if you're putting in phone numbers, you start that with 555 because nobody has that area code. Let's do Fullerton. 92832. Okay, and phone number. So once again, 555-5689-4255. Okay, so we just made that up. Okay, so we just typed this information. So when you're putting the content, it's a good idea to put the content first and then worry about how to fix the typography. Okay, so it's going to save you a lot of time. So type that information or copy that and paste that information from somewhere. And let's see, what can I use? Okay, so I was thinking for the name, I can filter out my fonts over here. So I want something more script-like. Okay, so now I can only see some script fonts over here. So I'll just use the first one over here. Nah. See what others are available. I don't have that many script fonts for some reason. Okay, so this looks a little bold. So let's try this. Okay, and then I'll just keep this the same. Marriott Pro is the default font of all the Adobe software packages. It's a really good font, but once again, overly used. But at this point, I don't care. Okay, so let's just do this, and let's just use the paragraph panel. So Command T, characters panel, paragraph panel. And then paragraph panel, what I'm going to do is to left indent. I'm just going to increase the left indent a little bit over here. Okay. This line is getting too close to the name. So I'm going to highlight this and go to the characters panel and change the leading. Remember, the leading is the distance between two baselines. So I can increase the leading so that I can push this information down. All right, so now this is, let's just use this for right now. We can keep playing with this. So now you can see that couple of problems. Number one, we need to change the color of the type. So we can do it right away. Just move it over here and change the color to, let's try white. Okay. Now this information can be a little too small. Okay. But before we get anywhere, so I can select this area where I'm selecting the background and this image and that rectangle in the background. Command 2 to lock it. So now I can easily, move around and play with this information. Okay, so if this is a little too small, I can go to the selection tool and I can scale this whole thing. So I don't have to go and readjust my type or anything. I can always scale, okay? So, we can play around and see, what can be done. All right, so already I knew that we'll be getting into this problem, and I was thinking that, I could have adjusted this issue in Photoshop, or we can do something in Illustrator, and you'll see what I can do. So in Illustrator, I'm going to create a rectangle over here, and I wanted to make it darker, so I'll just fill this with black, no stroke on it, and I'm going to take it one step back so that we can see the text. So You can arrange. You can right click over here and choose arrange and choose send backwards. Okay. Command and left bracket is the shortcut. Okay, so this is the shortcut to remember. And then I can say that, you know what, I can reduce the opacity of this black box. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so my tribe is standing out a little better over here, but I don't want like this division line. So somehow if we can do a gradient fade over here. Okay, so what can we do? All right, so this thing is already selected, so I'm going to go to my tools panel. You just bring the tool panel over here. You see where the colors are? And this was the solid color. This is no color, solid color. And in between there's a little icon, which is a gradient. So I'm going to click over here, gradient. Okay, so my gradient is set to going from white to black. Okay. So, but I want it to go in the opposite direction. So if I want this to go in opposite direction, so what can I do? Okay, so if you want to just do physically, you can do this way. So you take this black slider, move it this way, white, and just flip-flop it. Okay, so it's already looking a little better, okay, but I still have an issue over here. So this white line, because we are starting with solid white over here, okay. So I'm going to click on the white. We call them stops. This is a black stop, this is the white stop. So I select the white stop and change its opacity. Let's just take it to 0. Okay, so now we have a gradient black going to transparent. Okay, so just another trick of the trade. You know, there are many different solutions to do this. Just to show you how to do this. Another thing you can also do on the text is maybe add an effect like a drop shadow to this. So for that, I'm going to go to the effect menu up here, effect. And from effect, you choose stylize. And from stylize, you choose drop shadow. Okay, so now you can see there's a little drop shadow going on. And then you can, I wish they had these controls like in Photoshop over here, where you can actually go and physically move the shadow and make the changes. Over here, you have to work with the numbers. Okay, so X offset, I just want to make it a little less. Y offset also. That's going a little too far over here, so 0.1, so let's make it 0.025. Okay, you can change the opacity of the, but you got the idea. I don't like working with numbers over here. I'm more visual. So usually I do these type of things in Photoshop, but you got the idea though. So I'm just going to cancel this. All right. So let's say this is my business card. Okay, so why are we saving? Okay, why are we saving that rectangle? Remember that rectangle? If I go to my layers panel, which is sitting right down here, it is locked. So I'm just going to unlock this, all the layers, but I need to select this rectangle. I can do it in layers over here. I can go and click on this little circle. In the industry, we call it a meatball. So just click on the meatball. Okay, so you select that. Okay, so what are we saving this for? We are saving this for, if I go to effects over here after selecting it, and we are going to change this into crop marks. So when I change this into crop marks, so you see that it creates these crop marks over here. So if I select everything over here and move it in a little bit so that we can see all the crop marks. So these crop marks are helpful for the printer, print shop, so where to crop this image. So if I had this background image and it was a little larger, or I made it almost the same size, but if it was larger, so it would have enough bleed for the printer to know where to cut. Okay, because when printer prints like hundreds of sheets of paper and then they trim, so in the trimming process you do need a little bit of a bleed going on. So in my case I didn't keep the bleed, so but if you are doing it professionally, you can. All right, so okay, so now this is, let's say that we are done with this. Okay, so how many cards are going to go in on this paper? Is everyone with me, or did I put everyone to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay, we are almost done over here. So just a couple of things to do. I'm not going to go in any more details. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to select everything over here, drawing a marquee. And just for my own sake, I'm going to, should I group it? I'm not going to group it for right now. Okay, I'll just select everything and go to, not going to copy paste or option drag to make copies of this. I'm going to show you another way of doing it. I'm going to go to the effect once again. Okay, write this down. Effect, distort and transform. Yeah, distort and transform, and then from there you choose transform. Okay, so look at this dialog box. All right, so we want to transform this. We want to transform this from left side to right side. Okay, so we are not scaling it, we are going to move. Okay, how wide is this business card? Excuse me. It is 3.5 inches. Was it 3.5 or 3.25?
3.5. Oh, yeah, 3.5.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is that horizontally, I'm going to move 3.25, and once again, IN for inches. And I'll make sure that I also have this preview selected so that we can see how it's going to move. So actually, we started with 3.5. It's not 3.25. Okay. I think the actual size is 3.25, so we were wrong, 3.5. I don't do this every day, so I always forget the numbers. But so we can fix that. So let's make it 3.5. Okay, so this is how it's going to be transformed from left to right. But in order to do this, we also want it to make one copy rather than just moving it. So we'll put 1 in the copy number. So there is one copy. Okay, this looks great. I'll just say okay. Now, I want you to understand something now. So let's just move this little bit over here. So bring it a little bit in the middle of the paper. Okay, I'm a little bit off over here for some reason, but don't worry about it for right now. So what I want you to understand is that original should still be there. This is the original. This is just a mirror copy of it. This is just a copy. This is not the original. Okay. It's going to print, but if I want to make any changes, I will have to do it on the original, and this one also changes. So keeping that in mind, just keep that in mind. Let's go back to the first card over here, select everything. I'm going to go back to the effects and do this once again. So distort, transform, and transform. And this time I'm going to do a vertical transform. Okay, so vertical transform is going to be 2 inches. Remember 2 inches? Because
Yes,
the
sure.
height is 2 inches. And as when it comes to copies, I'm going to make 4 more copies. And say okay. All right. So now I have this whole sheet full of business card ready to be printed, ready to be trimmed. Okay, we have the crop marks and everything going. Somewhere I think I moved something, so I'm like a couple of pixels off over here. So I don't have the energy to go back and do this at this point. But again, you know, there was a little bit of an error. But what I want you to understand is that what we did over here is this is going to be our template. Let's say that you know, we can save this document, and we create another copy of this document and say that if you know, this business card was for a different company or different person. Okay, so we didn't put the person name over here, but I'm just going to change the name of the company. So let's say that this company says that, you know, they say, you know what, the name of the company is Darling Design, not Designs. Okay, so he'll say, yeah, no problem, I'll come. Go to the original card and make a change. I'll just delete S from here, and you can see that it makes that change all over for you. Okay, and then they will say, you know what, oh, you have this phone number was wrong, so it's actually 5566. So once we do this, so it changes everything. Okay. So going to stop. Sorry for not taking any breaks, but you know, I didn't even plan this, and I just created a new project for you. So I don't want you to create anything elaborate like this, but think of the 2-page spread you are doing, okay, for whatever company or anything. So if you want to create a business card for them, so you can use this process. So there were few things in there to remember. In our case, we decided to use a background image. So we created a background image in Photoshop, or we took that from that company. Okay, it was a JPEG image, so we manipulated that. Then there was an image of the model. Okay, we knocked out the background, saved it as a PNG file. We composited them both separate images in Illustrator. Okay, so that we can move these things around. Then we created the type. We all saw that the type was not looking good, so we created another object in the background with a gradient, so that type is a little more visible in that busy background. One of the objects, which was that rectangle, which defined how big this business card is. We kept it there. So later on to select it and change that into crop marks. Okay. And so once you create the crop marks, so I don't want to use this stroke over here. I forgot to remove that, so I can also remove the stroke so that it doesn't get printed. Okay, so now it's a little more cleaner. Okay. And another thing to remember is then I selected everything and I went to effects and made a copy by transforming this from one side to the other with making one copy, and then went again and transform it one more time, which was vertically, and made 4 more copies. And this is where we are. So that's how you do a template of a business card. Okay. So I'm going to stop here. You will find this video by tomorrow. Hopefully, last time, I had a little problem rendering the videos for some reason, but finally I did get it done. So I'll just make sure that tonight I can render it and put it on YouTube for you guys, and I'll send you a link. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop here. If there are any questions, then I'll stay. Otherwise, that will be it for today.
Are we saving the critique for next week?
We are saving the critique for next week, so don't worry about it. So I have to go and learn a few things now. So how to make sure that I set up my Zoom in a way that my students can also share their screens. I know there might be just a little checkbox somewhere which I missed. So, but anyway, so it's like, yeah, it's almost 9 o'clock now, so that should be. Okay, guys, so I'm going to stop sharing. So once again.
I have a question. What's our InDesign project again?
Okay, our InDesign project is to create a 2-page spread for an article for a fashion a magazine article or something like that. There was a question which Jesse emailed me, and that was that can we do we have to write an article, or do we have to can we copy and paste from somewhere? So you don't have to write. You can copy and paste information from somewhere. Lorem ipsum can also be fine. But I will say, it's a good idea to have some sort of information in there which makes sense. And but the only thing is that if you can give that writer a credit somewhere in your article, okay, that who the author is. So that should be fine, or where you got that from. So maybe if it was from any fashion magazine, so you can say, hey, you know what, I got it from a fashion magazine. It's a school project, you should be fine, but as long as you give a reference or a credit in there. Okay.
Can I make instead of an article per se, could I do like a 2-page spread like on a specific type of fashion?
That should be fine with me.
As long as like there's text too, like as long
as
it fits
I'm
okay.
fine. I'm fine with that. So whenever I give instructions, they are not word to word.
That's what I figure most of the time.
Just remember that I will just give you a rough idea because I do want you guys to make decisions. Okay. And when you are out there in the industry, so usually you won't get that much of a freedom unless it was your own personal project. So usually in my classes I give almost like 100% creative freedom to my students. So I've given you some basic instructions. Now you come up with your own ideas if you have to. So there are no restrictions, what to use, what not to use, or, okay. So I'll let you do that. Okay, so I had like 2 long lectures today, so I'm really tired now. So if you have any other questions, I'll stay, or otherwise. So is everyone okay? Sorry for giving you an extra project over here. I didn't even realize we will be doing this. But I hope you guys learned something. So yeah, again, you know, you guys are sitting home, you need something to do. So my thing
Yeah,
is,
I was planning on making a business card, so this was really good.
okay, great. Oh, you know, that's nice. So, and another thing is, you know, what we did is it's not just a design, but it's a template. So which can be, you know, used for, if there are 10 people in the company, you just make a copy of the document and just make a name change on one of the cards, and all the cards will be changed right away. So, you know, once you make this template, save it, and it, you know, you can keep using it again and again. Okay, guys, so that's it for today. And I want everyone to stay safe and have a nice weekend. And just keep everyone in your prayers and be safe. You know, that's the most important thing in these times.